that kind of clarity in life, whether it's professional or personal, is something that you should always just trust and lean into. Same thing I told you about Nick.
Yeah,
trust it and lean into it, you know? So whenever anyone has a why not me moment, I think that they should just trust it, pivot, and go. Hey, it's Mike Jackson, and welcome back to the Why Not Me podcast. This is a special episode of Why Not Me because it's Ask Me Anything episode. So basically, we put out the bat signal to the listeners, and they sent in a bunch of questions that they would like to know about me. So this is the episode where the chairs are reversed, and my dear friend Bresha Webb has joined the podcast to ask me all of your questions, and I will sit in my chair and answer them as best as I can. So Bresha, welcome again. Thank you so much.
Of course, Mike. I mean, you're in the hot seat now. I just got off the other show, so this is, let's go.
Little role reversal.
You started off with me asking me about my origin story, where I came from, and what makes me who I am. And I want to know that. Like, what's your sign? Like, let everybody know about who you are.
Okay. All right. Okay. My name is Mike Jackson, born Michael Jackson, Michael Mallory Jackson, Philadelphia, PA.
Were you ever confused with Michael Jackson? Like he?
No, because I'm, maybe, some dinner reservations, people were excited that I was coming through until I came through, and they realized it wasn't me. It wasn't him. But born and raised in Philly, only child, March 12th, Pisces, actually from a suburb of Philadelphia called Lower Merion, the main line. We're very famous because Kobe Bryant went to my high school. But I'm a Philly kid, and Philly definitely shapes me and continues to shape me. Although I'm from the kind of fancy suburb of Philadelphia where a lot of my friends had an easy path. My parents were still, they did pretty well, but still kind of a working class type of family unit. So I learned kind of how to balance both worlds of the have and the have-nots, and kind of how to play the middle and talk to people. And also growing up that environment where I learned how to talk to white rich people and my people that look like me that maybe didn't have as much. And I think all of those kinds of sensibilities and life lessons inform me to this day as I kind of navigate my life and Hollywood and the business and all of those things. But to this day, I'm a diehard Philly guy, still have a 215 cell phone number, still love my Philly sports, rep my Eagles and my Sixers all the time. And that's my origin story. The beginnings of it.
That was beautiful. That's a lot cleaner than what I gave you earlier. That's
great.
Amazing.
You were great.
But yeah, well, let's get into these questions that people have,
all right,
wrote and want to ask you. So Diego wants to know, when did you first realize you were interested in movies and entertainment?
Well, it's funny about my journey to now. I never grew up wanting to be a producer or in the business or anything like that. I just always wanted to have fun. And the truth of it is, after college, I moved to a town in Colorado called Boulder. And I was just kind of hanging out, working in a restaurant. And I met these guys who were promoters, and they asked me to promote their parties. And it was that experience of becoming a promoter and then eventually launching my own events production company that put me on the path of producing. And I was just naive enough to think, if I can produce an event, I can produce a movie or a TV show or a play or whatever. And I naively started taking steps in that direction, from going from physical event production to producing things for screen and stage. And it was just step by step, gig by gig, I kind of found my path forward. But I always kind of point back to Boulder, Colorado, and that first job as a promoter that kind of set me on this path.
That's awesome. And with movies, were you a big movie fan? Or
yeah,
anything?
I mean, I was an English major in college. So I always loved the spoken word or the written word. I just like words and how powerful they can be. And I feel like in TV and film, you're constantly a voyeur to other people's stories. So it was a really kind of great environment for me to kind of just have words splashing all over the place. So yeah, I kind of grew up a fan of TV and film for those reasons. And also obviously the escapism of all of it for most of us. But again, never really fancied myself. I said fancied myself. Never really fancied myself as someone being in the business outside of maybe being like a sports journalist or something like that. But everything happens for a reason.
Okay, Sean, he asked, IMDb lists you as both a producer and an executive producer. Can you explain the differences between those roles?
Look, fundamentally, I can boil it down really quickly, right? So I produce TV, I produce film, and literally an executive producer in television is the highest credit you can get, and it's the most desirable. So I'm an executive producer in television. And in features, although the executive producer credit is a very honorable, high credit, it's the producer credit in films that are the folks that kind of like are building the film. They're on set. They're kind of driving it. So that's like the more desired credit for features. So if you look at my IMDb and you see those credits, more often than not, the EP is a TV credit. The producer credit is for features. Now, there are other EP credits that I have in features because we might not be physically making the movie every day, but we're still bringing value to the project through some of our relationships or some of the work that we're doing, but we're just not in that position for that film to do it day in and day out. Hope that helps.
That's a great question because I feel like a lot of people are confused about that, looking in our industry, trying to figure and navigate things.
Yeah.
So very well put. Okay, the second part is what challenges has being a producer versus executive producer presented? Follow up, how has your producing responsibilities been different from one project to another?
I mean, again, there's not a challenge like one versus the other. I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to deliver content to stage or screen, and it's a challenge for everyone with producer credit and beyond, and actor credit and director credit, and everyone. It's just a grind. At the end of the day, the responsibility is the same as far as like you're trying to guide something from point A to point B. Everything that happens in between is always going to be uniquely different and specific, most likely to that project and the specific hurdles that you're facing and dealing with. But look, I mean, generally you'll have location issues or casting issues, or you might lose an actor. I mean, there's lots of things that happen over and over again on different projects. But I think it's important to note that every project is its own living thing. And it's like having children. Like you're not going to, I mean, you can, but you don't want to compare one child to the next child to the next child. They all bring their unique set of touchstones. And you just learn how to navigate each one individually. And you hope that you can deliver the goods and keep it moving.
I'm learning stuff.
I'm here for you, Bresha. I'm here. I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm here for you.
No, you're doing it. Okay, Selena wants to know, what's the biggest challenge you faced early in your career and how did you overcome it?
I think the biggest challenge, I guess, early on was, I'm a Black man. And although I like all stories from all people and I'm a consumer of all of it, I felt like it was really important to kind of tell Black stories and multicultural stories. And I wanted to do it from a more elevated position. I mean, I think there's space for everyone to kind of play and grow. And I think what was happening with Black content in particular was they were only letting us play mostly in a specific lane. And they weren't really giving us the dollars to support the more elevated type of content that I was interested in. So I would say that was kind of the biggest hurdle and remains a hurdle to this day to try to tell really smart, elevated Black content. I mean, it's definitely out there and it's definitely happening and I'm thankful for that. But at the end of the day, I still think that for me specifically is a hurdle that I deal with every day. But just being Black in Hollywood is going to be a hurdle no matter what you're trying to do. So, it is what it is. We're just going to keep grinding and keep pushing.
Say that again. All right. Leela asked, what was the first film you were credited as a producer on that you felt was a success for you?
My first film credit was the first film I produced. I don't know how much of a success it was, but it was a little film called The Lather Effect.
The Lather Effect?
Yes, ma'am. The Lather Effect. It starred, I was like, holy shit, Eric Stoltz, Connie Britton, Peter Facinelli, Ione Skye. The opposite of my last answer about doing all Black content, by the way. It's like the whitest film I've ever done.
After this, you were like, wait a minute.
No, this is the first. Yeah, this is the first one. I thought it was going to be easy. I can do the Black shit, and I was like, oh my goodness. A guy named David Herman, a woman named Sarah Clark, Caitlin Keats. Great film. Tate Donovan. So just like a lot of great actors that I had seen before. I Only Sky was in Say Anything, for God's sakes, which growing up was just like a cult classic. So that was my first film that I ever got a producer credit on. I also brought the financing to that film as well. So, which is why I was able to be a producer, quite frankly. I look at that as my grad school, although it was my first film credit. But it was a great experience. Worked with a wonderful woman named Rachel Rothman, who now is named Rachel Winter, and a guy named Gary Bryman were my producing partners. And yeah, it was just a really great, fun experience for me. And it set me on this course that I've never kind of veered from.
Wow. Like, how do you even get attached to something like that?
How that happened was, for me, like, this is that thing I talk about, how I grew up, the haves and the have-nots. Some of my haves had some money, and I was able to convince them to bankroll my endeavors early on. So I had a commitment from two of my friends from Philadelphia that they would, if I identified movies that I wanted to make, that they would put the financing together for me. Not, massive movies, but small $1 million, $2 million movies. And the first 3 films that I produced, I brought the financing to as well. And again, I call that grad school for me because it gave me an opportunity to kind of learn from the top down. Although I found myself still engaged with all the different departments and even helping some of the departments when I was allowed to. I was like IATSE and those guys, I wasn't allowed to do that stuff because of the unions. But I really was intrigued and engaged in the whole process of filmmaking, but I was able to do it from the producer's seat, which kind of gave me a certain level of access that I probably would not have otherwise had.
That's dope. See, I'm learning. This is dope. Okay. Ivan asked, John Legend seems like he would be great to work with. Since you're his producing partner, can you tell us how you and John started working together? And when did you realize he would be a cool guy to collaborate with?
Well, first of all, John Legend's a monster. He's like the most horrific person to work with ever. Like, just, obviously I'm kidding.
Take it slow.
Take it slow. John is my brother. He has been in my life for 20 plus years. By the time we decided to launch Get Lifted and become producing partners, we already had a really rich history as friends. I was his first manager when his name was still John Stevens. And I was a promoter in Philly. And our dear friend Ty Staclorius, who is his current manager and our producing partner at Get Lifted, introduced us. And short, funny story, I had him show up at a restaurant when I was on a date to sing for me. He did. He sang a Stevie Wonder track. I believe it was My Sherry Amore. The whole restaurant stopped. I had no idea what to do with this guy, but I knew I wanted to do something. And, I was like, I'll be in touch. And I called a friend of mine, Glenn Manco, who was a music exec, but he had a law degree. And I said, hey, we're starting a management company. And I found our first client. And that was the beginning of my relationship with John. Slowly, maybe a year or 2 into that, I realized that I didn't want to be in representation. I wanted to be more of a producer. And that's when I did what I told you I did before, and kind of parted ways with John. But we had built foundationally this really wonderful friendship. And as my career started to evolve and I started producing and he became John Legend, we were always, side by side in each other's lives at that point as friends and watching each other's growth. And ultimately that led to me calling him one day and saying, hey, man, I really want to launch a company because I want to control the narrative that I'm a part of as best as possible. And I need someone with a platform to help me kind of ignite this thing that I want to do. And I want to do it with you. And at this point, it was like 2011, 2012. So he was obviously a famous singer, but he wasn't John Legend. But I knew then what he was going to become. And I said, I know what you're going to be and I know how you're going to evolve. And I want to get into it early, so we're ready for when the explosion happens. And when it did, we had Get Lifted. We had a few credits under our belt and we were ready to roll. And that's how it started.
Wow.
All the conversations we've had, and I've never told you any of this stuff.
You never did. You never did, Mike. And I'm still, I'm still at
Don't
the
say
point
it.
where you I called my friend who is a music, he was a lawyer. He was something in music and a lawyer.
Glenn Manco.
Yeah. And you said, we're going to start a music label. So I got my first client.
Management, but yeah, like
management.
Yeah. Why not?
Like, he was like, he's great. We're going to start a management company.
Yeah. And we had like 3 or 4 other clients, like Philly-based clients at the time. And yeah, my company that I was doing all these events from, Kojax Entertainment, COJAX, Jackson's company. Anyway, We were doing other events, and we just added this little layer to it.
That's pretty dope, Mike. I mean,
Yeah.
it takes a certain type of person to have that much faith in themselves and what they can produce, and put action towards it.
I joke. I say it takes faith. It takes
Yeah.
faith for sure, and a lot of stupidity. Like to believe, like just, oh yeah, sure, no problem.
You're gonna do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really just throwing case to the wind and just going at it and doing it.
Which we all do in this business.
Which we all do every day.
You know? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
Vanessa wants to know, can you talk about how your TV show Rhythm and Flow came to be? Did you get to interact with Cardi B, Chance the Rapper, and T.I. a lot? The show is about the search of the next, if people don't know, the show is about the search for the next breakout hip hop star.
Yeah. So Rhythm and Flow, season 1, look, we didn't invent the wheel here, right? Like competition shows or music competition shows, even rap competition shows predate our show. But we felt like specifically the hip hop and our culture, those shows were never really organically about the culture. We felt like they just threw Jermaine Dupri or people that we love and respect. Hey, you're the host, or the other guy, like just, and that was that, but they weren't built. We didn't feel like by us. Right.
Right.
So when we started doing Rhythm and Flow, we originally sold it to a broadcast network. We quickly realized like we can't be for the culture on a broadcast network. We can't have the freedoms that we need to represent the culture. So Netflix, we went to Netflix. They said yes. We quickly brought on Jesse Collins and Dion Harmon, who are like the heartbeat of culture. Period. And we knew like we needed them to be successful, and they're friends, and they said yes immediately. And then we went about the business of making a show. And, we went to Kendrick's camp, and went to like really big A&R people like Dallas Martin, and just were like, help us be authentic to the culture. We know we can, but we need you to be on the ride with us. So we need the cosign. We need it. And everyone was down, and everyone was like ready to kind of roll up their sleeves and get involved. So that was the birth of Rhythm and Flow. Season 1 with Chance and Cardi and Tip was awesome. Look, my job as a producer, for me, is to kind of set it up and like step back and let the creatives do what they do. So yes, absolutely, I interacted with them and spent moments with them. But I kind of let the showrunners and directors do all that stuff. And then season 2 with Lotto and DJ Khaled and Ludacris, I probably spent a little more time with those guys. But again, I'm not there to really meet stars. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a gig, and everyone's there to do what they're there to do, and kind of keep it moving. But everyone's wonderful and cool and nice, and I have a lot of friends that are fancy and fun and on camera. But there's a time and a place to be friends with the fancy folk, and there's a time and a place to roll up your sleeves and work. So we were there to work.
There you go, Vanessa. Okay, Nico wanted to know about La La Land. He said, yes, we want to know what your experience was like being an executive producer on that film, but also what was the Oscar Best Picture mix-up moment like?
Was there a mix-up on the La La Land? I'm fucking with you.
Was it? I don't remember.
Something happened.
Yeah.
The experience was incredible. Damien Chazelle, who wrote and directed the film, we had got to know him a little bit prior because of his film Whiplash, was the same season that John won the Oscar with Common for Selma. Mm-hmm. So we all got to know each other through that process. Damien actually was born and spent the early part of his years in my hometown. So we kind of just bonded over all this really cool stuff. And when he was putting La La Land together, it was without us. He was just doing it with his team and his folks. And he called me and was like, hey, do you think John would write a song for the movie? And I said, well, he just won an Oscar for that. So what more do you got? And and he basically, we chuckled, and then I was like, can we come in and like physically go make this movie with you guys? And obviously the answer was like, we couldn't physically be like the capital P producers on this movie because that was already established and we understood it and the ship had sailed. But we did get the opportunity to come in as executive producers and kind of, roll up our sleeves a little bit and kind of get engaged with the creative process. We ultimately created an opportunity for John to act in the movie, which was really important to us. And he did do a couple of songs as well. So the whole experience working with Damien and Fred Berger and just all the other producers, Mark Platt, Jordan, like it was just a really great experience for us. And it was the first time professionally that the town saw us as producers in a really, really significant way, because there was a bigger audience, because it was a white movie. And that really kind of hit its pinnacle at the Oscars, because we had this incredible run. We won literally every Best Picture award. I remember joking with, ironically, a kid who I grew up with and went to high school with. His name is David Finkel. He's one of the co-founders of A24, which had funded, financed, and produced Moonlight. And we've been beating them in every category. And it was really fun to talk smack to my fellow Philly friend. And right before the Oscars announcement, like literally during the show, I was joking, well, at least you only have to lose to us one more time. And of course, as we all know, Warren Beatty, Faye Dunaway, the Oscar goes to La La Land. We all rush the stage, and it's this incredible moment. And Platt is making his speech. He had just won his first Oscar. We're so excited for him. And then Jordan kind of got up there and did his thing. And as it was transitioning from Jordan to Fred, I remember this vividly. Emma Stone's next to me, clutching her Oscar. John's behind me, Damien, Linus, our DP. Everyone's on stage celebrating. And all of a sudden, the little man with headsets runs out. And he goes, he said, you didn't win. And we're like, what are you talking about?
That's how he said it?
Yeah. He's like,
you didn't win.
But no one really knows what he's talking about or why he's there. And I remember Emma's like clutching her Oscar, Birds fan, and she's like, what's going on? And then he puts the card that the whole world saw Jordan wave in front of my face. And we see that it's the card, and it reads, it's the actual winner's card, and it says Jeremy Gardner, or D.D. Gardner, all these like people we know that produced Moonlight. And we're like, holy shit. And I remember John kind of being like, is it a tie? And the guy's like, no, tie. And then he walked away, and then the world saw everything that kind of happened after that. But with all that said, the experience was surreal for sure.
Because I was there that night. And it was a big mix up, but I didn't know that on the actual card, like,
so
were there two cards?
What happens is there's two cards on, yes, there's two cards.
Okay.
This is at least my understanding. There's two cards for each award, one on stage left, one stage right. Depending on which side of the stage the presenter walks in, they hand them the card. So if the person hands them the card stage right, then the person stage left disposes of the card.
I see.
That's what's supposed to happen.
But they both say the same thing?
Correct.
Okay.
That's my understanding. So whatever happened, the person who was supposed to dispose of the Best Actress card, which said Emma Stone, La La Land, did not. And then the next award was Best Picture, and he handed that card to Warren Beatty. And Warren Beatty...
That's why the confusion.
Right, because he saw that it said Emma Stone, La La Land.
La La Land.
He didn't know how to handle it in real time. Showed it to Faye Dunaway, who presumed it was going to be La La Land anyway, because we won all the other awards. And it said La La Land on the card. And it wasn't like she was like studying it. He was just kind of like, hey, you read it.
Yes.
And then she said La La Land, because it said it on the card.
It said Emma Stone, La La Land.
And that was from our understanding, that's what happened.
That makes sense.
And apparently the guy who gave the wrong card was understandably caught up in the moment and was taking pictures and posting them of like Emma or something like that. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what we heard. All good. But I will tell you this, when it actually happened, it's not good, but when it actually happened, and, John and I went from being the two brothers on stage to just like all of us on stage. And we also realized, as much as we love La La Land and that experience will live with us forever, we also knew that a film like Moonlight was much more akin to the type of films that we want to be making and the stories we want to be telling. And we knew in that moment that was a really, really big win for us.
Yes, it was.
And I always look at that moment in that lens of like, that was a win for Black Hollywood. And if it came at my expense and John's expense and La La Land's expense, like I felt bad for the people involved in La La Land that I worked with and didn't walk away with the statue that night, sincerely. But they still gonna eat. You know what I'm saying?
They're all eating.
They're all eating.
Everyone.
Emma won. I'm just talking about the producers, but like, they're still going to eat. But like for a gay, black indie film to walk away with Jim Barry to get the award and just, it was a beautiful moment. And then underneath all that, Ryan Gosling was just sitting in the background, just chuckling the whole time, which also made it really funny. So yeah, that was what that moment was like. My phone, whenever, I've never had my phone blow up like with congratulations and then like, oh shit, like in my life. But funny moment, and
funny
life
moment.
goes on.
I don't even know how we go on after that moment.
Hey man, you tell me.
No, I mean that's the crescendo of the thing.
There we go.
There's two other questions, but I'm like, okay, this is a good question. Okay, this could be it. Okay, what's the most valuable lesson you've learned throughout your career journey? Tony wants to know.
I think it's really important to treat everyone with respect, from the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top. And I think a lot of people, as they ascend in this business, they start to believe their own hype, or they start to think they're who they thought they were supposed to be in certain positions. And they lose sight of like their origin story, and they lose sight of their journey and their process that got them to where they are currently. And I see that a lot. So I think the lesson that I've learned and the thing that I would try to impart is just to be a human and to treat people with kindness and respect, understand mistakes happen. And it's okay to get hot-headed sometimes. And it's okay to be upset and mad, and don't hide who you are, but understand that you need to wrap that in compassion and kindness. And I think that if you can do that, people will see that and you'll receive it.
Every time. That's
cool.
That's amazing. And one more question. What is your biggest why not me moment to date?
Wow. My biggest why not me moment to date today.
I have your answer.
You have my answer?
Yeah.
Is it family oriented?
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, look, yeah, my biggest why not me moment in my life is definitely my family, right? Like, and falling in love at 52 with a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. I know in Hollywood that's not as crazy, but like on Earth, it's a little weird. So, I thought in that moment when I met my wife that night, and I was like, is this happening to me? Is this person going to change the rest of my life? Because I knew it within an hour of meeting her. And I was like, why not me? And the minute I said, why not me, and said, it can be you, I told her that night that she was going to be my wife and the mother of my children. And I've never looked back. And I think that kind of clarity in life, whether it's professional or personal, is something that you should always just trust and lean into. Same thing I told you about Nick.
Yeah.
Trust it and lean into it, So whenever anyone has a why not me moment, I think that they should just trust it, pivot, and go. And I think on that note, I'm going to go back to my seat and say, this has been a really cool episode. Last fucking question.
That was a good last question.
Yeah. And thank you again, friend.
Anything for you, friend. Anything for you. Awesome. This is amazing. And I learned so much.
See,
I mean, because at the beginning, I was like, I know all of these answers, but there was one point when you were talking about movies, and I was like, he has to talk about like his love for literature and, how much he loves books and things like that. I was like, well, what about movies and films and words? And then you said it. I was like, see, I did it.
English major, John, Ty, and I were all English majors in college. And I'm trying to teach my kids, words are powerful.
Yeah, they are.
Be careful with your words. Even from a young age, like they matter.
They matter.
So,
absolutely.
That's why I'm glad to be a part of this circus that we're all in, because when we get it right, not to put too much weight on what we do, but when we get it right, like it can have a profound effect on people.
Yeah.
Words matter. Thank you, sis.
This was an amazing conversation, Mike. Thanks again for having me. And if anyone has any other questions or wants to, connect or learn any more things about me, I'm on Instagram at Bresha Webb. And yeah, I'm on Instagram. I don't do that Twitter or whatever it's called. I was about to say it. I don't do it no more. I'm on TikTok, but I don't know how to work. I'm showing my age, but I'm on Instagram, so look me up there.
Well, I'm with you on that. And again, thank you for being a part of this. And, I want to thank everyone, all the listeners for sending questions and participating in this specific type of forum. If you ever have any more questions, feel free to send them to me at the Why Not Me with Mike Jackson Instagram page, or you can even send it to my own Instagram page, which is, Mike 3_ Jackson. And also definitely please go subscribe to our YouTube channel, Why Not Me with Mike Jackson. I need these numbers, y'all. Let's go. So we appreciate your support, and thank you, and have a wonderful
like and subscribe.
like and subscribe, and also have a wonderful and blessed holiday with your families.